Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadire. Nashtaprayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Seveya. Bhagavate Ruttama Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtaki. Om Gnanathmirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutala Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shuryavari Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, Canto 4, Chapter 2, Verse 32. Tad Brahma Paramam Shuddham Satam Vartma Sanatanam Vigarhya Yatapashandam Daivam Vo Yatra Bhutarat. By blaspheming the principles of the Vedas, which are the pure and supreme path of the saintly persons. Certainly, you followers of Bhutapati, Lord Shiva, will descend to the standard of atheism without a doubt. By blaspheming principles of Vedas, you followers of Lord Shiva will descend to the standard of atheism without a doubt. So Bhrigu Muni is further completing his curse. Lord Shiva here is described here as Bhutarat. The ghosts and those who are situated in the material mode of ignorance are called Bhutas. So Bhutarat refers to the leader of the creatures who are in the lowest standard of the material modes of nature. Another meaning of Bhuta is anyone who has taken birth or anything which is produced. So in that sense, Lord Shiva may be accepted as the father of this material world. That is because when Krishna says Ambija Pradapita, it's actually through Shiva that he is the father. Meaning he empowers Shiva, Shiva comes in contact with Durga Devi, and hence the all the jivas get their bodies. So that way, uh, Shiva is accepted as the father of the material world. Here, of course, Bhrigu Muni takes Lord Shiva as the leader of the lowest creatures. The characteristics of the lower class of men have already been described. They do not bathe, they have long hair on their heads, and they're addicted to intoxicants. In comparison with the path followed by the followers of Bhutarat, the Vedic system is certainly excellent, for it promotes people to spiritual life as the highest eternal principle of human civilization. If one decries or blasphemes the Vedic principles, then he falls to the standard of atheism. Maitreya Uvacha Tasyaivam vadatas shapam bhrugos bhagavan bhavah nishchakrama tatah kinchit vimana iva sanugaha. Sage Maitreya said, when such cursing and counter cursing was going on between Lord Shiva's followers and the parties of Daksha and Bhrigu, Lord Shiva became very morose. Not saying anything, he left the arena of the sacrifice, followed by his disciples. Here, Lord Shiva's excellent character is described, in spite of the cursing and counter cursing between the parties of Daksha and Shiva. Because he is the greatest Vaishnava, he was sober. He was sober. He was so sober that he did not say anything. So this is something that all of us need to practice, is to remain sober. Generally, when we become upset, when we become emotional, then we don't remain sober. And generally, what do we say? Uh, we say that, see, if that person did not do like that, then I wouldn't have shouted or I wouldn't have got angry. Mm, yeah, people generally, unless they are mad, people generally get angry only when there is some so-called reason for becoming angry, isn't it? So now, if we say, yeah, there was a reason to become angry, so I became angry. Uh, I mean, that's what it is. That's what everybody does. What is the difference between us and them? If we also become angry when there is provocation. So dhira means one who doesn't get provocated when there is a reason for provocation. He is a dhira. He is sober. Now we can't wait for something to happen for us to develop this quality of being sober, being dhira. Every situation that comes our way in our life, every day, every minute, we have so many opportunities to develop this quality of being sober. Uh, but most of the times we actually fail the test on a regular basis, and we don't even recognize the fact that we failed the test, isn't it? Mm. So this is something that Vaishnavas have to constantly endeavor. You have to constantly endeavor because it's not easy. It's become part of our nature, material nature, that we get triggered by various situations, people, conversations, etc., etc., etc. So wherever there is a reason for our provocation, if we remain quiet, that is being sober. Shiva was able to do that because he is the greatest Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is always tolerant, because if we are not tolerant, we cannot remain sober. Any untoward situation, just say, okay, Krishna's will is for my improvement. It's for me to become a better devotee. Always tolerant. And also is tolerant because he has full faith in Krishna. Rakshishati Vishwa, so he depends on Krishna. He doesn't think he's the doer. So and he knows that it's just a result of past karma phala. So he's tolerant and humble and sober. Lord Shiva is considered the topmost Vaishnava. So his character as shown in this scene is excellent. We have to show excellent character, exemplary character. Vaishnavans means exemplary character. He became morose because he knew that these people, both his men and Dakshas, were unnecessarily cursing and counter cursing one another without any interest in spiritual life. See, this is the quality of a Vaishnava. Vaishnava in all situations just um, desires spiritual benefit for everybody involved, that they make progress in their spiritual life. And if that is not happening, then it makes the devotee morose, meaning his compassion is awakened, and then he will do something for their welfare. From his point of view, he did not see anyone as lower or higher because he's a Vaishnava. He's the topmost Vaishnava, Uttama Adhikari. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Pandita Samadarshinaha, one who is perfectly learned does not see anyone as lesser or greater because he sees everyone from the spiritual platform. As the only alternative left to Lord Shiva was to leave in order to stop his follower Nandishvara as well as Bhrigu Muni from cursing and counter cursing in that way. So this is something that we can also learn. Situations are not uh, favorable for spiritual life, then it's good for us also to leave the place. So like temporarily we can leave the place. Somebody is upset, shouting, this, that, and all that. We can temporarily leave the place. That way, or at least that way, we will stop ourselves from becoming part of the uh, incident that is happening. And generally, people once their anger subsides, then they will come to their senses. They'll apologize, etc. So that will also give an opportunity. Otherwise, if you are also there and this tu may happens, then the whole thing is spoiled. So very, very difficult, yet something that should be tried, should be practiced. Tepi Vishwasrija Satram Sahasra Parivatsaran Samvidhaya Maheshwasa Yatrejya Rishabho Harihi. Sage Maitreya continued, O Vidura, all the progenitors of the universal population, meaning Prajapatis, thus executed a sacrifice for thousands of years. For sacrifice is the best way to worship the Supreme Lord, Hari, the personality of Godhead. Clearly stated here that the stalwart personalities who generate the entire population of the world are interested in satisfying the Supreme Person of Godhead by offering sacrifices. Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yagnatapasam, one may engage in performing sacrifices and severe austerities for perfection. But they're all meant to satisfy the Supreme Lord, no other goal, no other intention. The intention is just to simply satisfy Krishna. If such activities are performed for personal satisfaction, one is involved in pashanda or atheism. Prabhupada is saying if somebody is engaged in activities for personal satisfaction, then it is atheism. But when they are performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, one is following the Vedic principle. All the assembled sages performed sacrifices for 1000 years. Aprutyavabhritam yatra ganga yamunayanvita virajena sarve swam swam dhama yayustataha. My dear Vidura, carrier of bows and arrows, all the demigods who were performing the sacrifice took their bath at the confluence of the Ganges and the Yamuna after completing the Yagna performance. Such a bath is called Avabhuta Snana. After thus becoming purified in heart, they departed for their respective abodes. After Lord Shiva and previously Daksha left the arena of sacrifice, the sacrifice was not stopped. The sages went on for many years in order to satisfy the Supreme Lord. The sacrifice was not destroyed for want of Shiva and Daksha, and the sages went on with their activities. In other words, it may be assumed that if one does not worship the demigods even up to Lord Shiva and Brahma, one can nevertheless satisfy the Supreme Person of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Kamestaiste gnana papadyante anyadevataha. Persons who are impelled by lust and desire go to the demigods to derive some material benefit. Bhagavad Gita uses the very specific words nasti buddhihi, meaning persons who lost their sense of intelligence. Only such persons care for demigods and want to derive material benefit from them. Very strong. Of course, this does not mean that one should not show respect to the demigods, but there is no need to worship them. This is very, very clear instruction. But still, we see in so many devotees' houses that they're still worshipping demigods. Very clear. We don't show disrespect, but we don't worship them. One who is honest may be faithful to the government, but he does not need to bribe the government servants. Bribery is illegal. One does not bribe a government servant. But that does not mean that one does not show him respect. Similarly, one who engages in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord does not need to worship any demigod, nor does he have any tendency to show disrespect to demigods. Both are important. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, it stated, Yepyanya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvitaha. Lord says that anyone who worships the demigods is also worshipping him, but is worshipping avidhi purvakam, meaning against the vidhi, without following the regulative principles. The regulative principle is to worship the Supreme Person of Godhead. Vidhi means to worship Krishna. Worship of demigods may indirectly be worship of Personality of Godhead, but it is not regulated. By worshipping the Supreme Lord, one automatically serves all the demigods because they are parts and parcels of the whole. If one supplies water to the root of a tree, all the parts of the tree, such as leaves and branches, are automatically satisfied. And if one supplies food to the stomach, all the limbs of the body are nourished. Thus, by worshipping the Supreme Person of Godhead, one can satisfy all the demigods. But by worshipping all the demigods, one does not completely worship the Supreme Lord. Therefore, worship of the demigods is irregular and it is disrespectful to the scriptural injunctions. In this age of Kali, it is practically impossible to perform Deva Yagna or sacrifices to the demigods. As such, in this age, Srimad Bhagavatam recommends Sankirtana Yagna. Yagna is Sankirtana Prayar Yajanti Sumedhasaha. In this age, the intelligent person completes the performances of all kinds of yagnas simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtaha. When Lord Vishnu is satisfied, all the demigods or parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord are satisfied. So our only goal should be to satisfy Krishna. But for various reasons, we end up satisfying either demigods or other human beings. as opposed to satisfying Krishna. So we have to always be careful about this. Whatever we are doing must be simply for the pleasure of the Lord. Okay, so with this, second chapter is completed. Third chapter talks between Lord Shiva and Sati. Maitreya Uvacha. Sada vidvishator evam kalo vai triyamanayoho damatu shvashurasyapi tumahan atichakrame. Maitreya continued. In this manner, the tension between the father-in-law and son-in-law, Daksha and Lord Shiva, continued for a considerably long period. The previous chapter has already explained that Vidura questioned the sage Maitreya as to the cause of the misunderstanding between Lord Shiva and Daksha. Another question is why the strife between Daksha and his son-in-law caused Sati to destroy her body. The chief reason for Sati's giving up her body was that her father Daksha began another sacrificial performance to which Lord Shiva was not invited at all. Generally, when any sacrifice is performed, although each and every sacrifice is intended to pacify the Supreme Person of Godhead, Vishnu, all the demigods, especially Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and the other principal demigods such as Indra, Chandra, are invited and they take part. It is said that unless all the demigods are present, no sacrifice is complete. But in the tension between the father-in-law and son-in-law, Daksha began another yajna performance to which Lord Shiva was not invited. Daksha was the chief progenitor employed by Lord Brahma, and he was the son of Brahma, so he had a high position and was also very proud. And that's why Bhagavatam says Krishna is Akinchana Gochara in Kunti Maharani's prayers. Kinchana meaning who has nothing. Very easy for somebody who has nothing to please the Lord. Because if somebody has high position, wealth, education, beauty, etc., which are all a result of just punya in the previous life, and then one ends up becoming proud. That's why Bhagavatam also says that one who has all these qualifications but is still not proud, already it means that he's got the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Because a natural reaction is for people to become proud because of any good qualities they might have. Some of them might be material, some of them might be spiritual. Even then, there is tendency for human beings to become proud because this is one of the attributes of false ego. Because we think ourselves separate from Krishna, we think we are the doers, and so we are very proud. Okay, I did this. And when this high position, wealth, etc., gets to the head, then one will act like Daksha, like he is going to do now. यदाभिषिक्तो दक्षस्तु ब्रह्मणा परमेष्ठिना प्रजापतीनां सर्वेषाम् आधिपत्ये स्मयोऽभवत्. Lord Brahma appointed Daksha the chief of the Prajapatis, the progenitors of population. Daksha became very much puffed up. Although he was envious and was inimical toward Lord Shiva, Daksha was appointed the chief of all the Prajapatis. That was the cause of his excessive pride. When a man becomes too proud of his material positions, he can perform any disastrous act. And therefore Daksha acted out of false prestige. That is described in this chapter. Itva sa vajapayena brahmishtan abhibhuya cha brahaspati savam nama samarebe kratuttamam. Daksha began a sacrifice named Vajapaya, and he became excessively confident of his support by Lord Brahma. He then performed another sacrifice named Brahaspati Sava. In the Vedas, it is prescribed that before performing a Brahaspati Sava sacrifice, one should perform the sacrifice named Vajapaya. While performing these sacrifices, however, Daksha neglected great devotees like Lord Shiva. According to Vedic scriptures, the demigods are eligible to participate in yajnas and share the oblations. But Daksha wanted to avoid them. All sacrifices are intended to pacify Lord Vishnu. But Lord Vishnu includes all his devotees. Brahma, Shiva, and the other demigods are all obedient servants of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, Lord Vishnu is never satisfied without them. But Daksha, being puffed up with his power, wanted to deprive Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva of participation in the sacrifice, understanding that if one satisfies Vishnu, it is not necessary to satisfy his followers. But that is not the process. Vishnu wants his followers to be satisfied first. Lord Krishna says, Madbhakta Pujadhika. The worship of my devotees is better than worship of me. Adhika is greater. Similarly, in the Shiva Purana, it is stated the best mode of worship is to offer oblations to Vishnu. But better than that is to worship the devotees of Krishna. Thus, Daksha's determination to neglect Lord Shiva in the sacrifice was not fitting. So we should always try, look forward, grab opportunities to worship devotees of Krishna. Generally, when when there's some exalted Vaishnava, Maharaj, senior devotees, etc., if they come, we should grab the opportunity to serve them. We should worship them, and we should glorify them. Should serve them, because Krishna is very, very easily pleased when his devotees are pleased. And devotees, because they are so humble, they also very easily get pleased. We do some little service, Vaishnavas will glorify our actions. So this is very, very important for spiritual progress. Somehow among devotees, this uh, this mood of service, serving other Vaishnavas, mm, not there much. In fact, Rupa Goswami says, Dadati pratigranhati guhyam akhyati prachati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva. Mm. So this is a very, very important part, anga of bhakti, which is to actually invite devotees home, give them gifts, uh, feed them prasadam, please them. But we are all so busy. Everybody is busy, busy, busy. So no time for all these things. Without doing all this, how can we make progress in bhakti? Mm. So it's very, very important that this mood should be developed. Like we can't, we, we we don't hesitate to take service from other devotees. We won't even realize, but we'll just say, "Ah, can you please get me this? Can you get that? Can you get that jug from there?" We should be in the mood of service. That means that we are not taking service from other devotees. Because only when we develop that mood can we subsequently worship devotees. If you're always in taking service mode, that's why Sanatan Goswami and Rupa Goswami, we don't know that incident when Rupa Goswami wanted to offer some sweet rice to Sanatan Goswami, and Radharani herself uh, comes to deliver ingredients, etc. And some versions also say she cooked sweet rice, and Sanatan Goswami was very upset, saying that what is this? We have to serve Radharani, but we took the service from Radharani. So we should stop, avoid this taking service from other devotees. And we should always try to serve devotees. Worship, then we can come to the stage of worshipping devotees. And if devotees were to worship, Krishna is very pleased. Very, very important. तस्मिन् ब्रह्मर्षयः सर्वे देवर्षि पितृदेवताः आसन् कृतस्वस्त्ययनास् तत्पत्न्यश्च भर्तृकाः. When the sacrifice was being performed, many Brahmarshis, great sages, ancestral demigods, and other demigods, their wives, all very nicely decorated with ornaments, attended from different parts of the universe. In any auspicious ceremony, such as a marriage ceremony, sacrificial ceremony, or puja, it is auspicious for married women to decorate themselves very nicely with ornaments, fine clothing, and cosmetics. Shastra is saying that it is auspicious. That women, married women, specifically, it's being married women, very nicely uh, just decorate with themselves with ornaments, fine clothing, and cosmetics. These are auspicious signs. Many heavenly women assembled with their husbands, the Devarshis, demigods, and Rajarshis in that great sacrifice named Brahaspati Sava. It is specifically mentioned in this verse that they approach with their husbands. For when a woman is decorated nicely, her husband becomes more cheerful. The nice decorations, ornaments, and dress of the wives of the demigods and sages, and the cheerfulness of the demigods and sages themselves, are all auspicious signs for the ceremony. तदुपश्रुत्य नभसि खेचा चराणां प्रजल्पतां सती दाक्षायणी देवी पितृयज्ञं महोत्सवं व्रजन्ती सर्वतो दिग्भ्य उपदेवः परस्त्रियः विमानयानाः सप्रेष्ठा निष्कान्ति सुवाससः दृष्ट्वा स्वनिलयाभ्यास्ये लोलाक्षीर्मृष्टकुण्डलाः पतिं भूतपतिं देवम् औत्सुक्याद् अभ्यपाशताम्. Yes, lady Sati, the daughter of Daksha, heard the heavenly denizens flying in the sky, conversing about the great sacrifice being performed by her father. When she saw that from all directions the beautiful wives of the heavenly denizens, their eyes very beautifully glittering, were near her residence and were going to the sacrifice, dressed in fine clothing and ornamented with earrings and necklaces with lockets, she approached her husband, the master of the Bhutas, in great anxiety and spoke as follows. It appears that the residence of Lord Shiva was not on this planet but somewhere in outer space. Otherwise, how could Sati have seen the airplanes coming from different directions towards this planet and heard the passengers talking about the great sacrifice being performed by Daksha? Sati is described here as Dakshayani because she was the daughter of Daksha. The mention of the Upadeva Vara refers to inferior demigods like Gandharvas, Kinnaras, Uragas, who are not exactly demigods, but between the demigods and human beings. They were also coming in planes. The word Swa Nilayabhyashe indicates that they were passing right near her residential quarters. The dress and bodily features of the wives of the heavenly denizens are very nicely described here. Their eyes moved, their earrings and the other ornaments glittered and glared. Their dresses were the nicest possible, and all of them had special lockets on their necklaces. Each woman was accompanied by her husband, thus they looked so beautiful that Sati Dakshayani was impelled to dress similarly and go to the sacrifice with her husband. That is the natural inclination. प्रत्युवाच प्रजापतेस्ते श्वशुरस्य साम्प्रतां निर्यापितो यज्ञमहोत्सवः किल वयं च तत्राभिसराम वामते यद्यर्थितामि विबुधः प्रजन्तिः. But he said, my dear Lord Shiva, your father-in-law is now executing great sacrifices, and all the demigods, having been invited by him, are going there. If you desire, we may also go. So first she starts off saying, if you desire, and hoping that he'll just say, yeah, okay, let's go. Sati knew of the tension between her father and her husband, but still she expressed to her husband, Lord Shiva, that since such sacrifices were going on at her father's house and so many demigods were going, she also desired to go. But she could not express her willingness directly, so she told her husband that if he desired to go, then she could also accompany him. In other words, she submitted her desire very politely to her husband. See, very nice. Prabhupada brings out these subtleties, nuances in dealings between husband and wife. So he's saying, if you desire, we may also go. Hmm. So she submitted her desire in these words, politely. तस्मिन् भगिन्यो मम भर्तृभिस्वकैर्ध्रुवं गमिष्यन्ति सुहृद्दिदृक्षवः अहं च तस्मिन् भवताभिकामये सहोपनीतं सहोपनीतं परिभर्हम् अर्हितुम्. I think that all my sisters must have gone to this great sacrificial ceremony with their husbands just to see their relatives. I also desire to decorate myself with the ornaments given to me by my father, not Lord Shiva. Shiva did not give anything. And go there with you to participate in that assembly. It is woman's nature to want to decorate herself with ornaments and nice dresses and accompany her husband to social functions, meet friends and relatives, and enjoy life in that way. Of course, this should not be the nature of devotees. This is general women. This propensity is not unusual for women, is the basic principle of material enjoyment. Therefore, in Sanskrit, the word for woman is tri, which means one who expands the field of material enjoyment. In the material world, there is an attraction between woman and man. This is the arrangement of conditional life. So, if even after coming to bhakti and making and practicing bhakti for a long time, if this attraction between woman and man has not mm, decreased, then we should understand that we have not made much progress. A woman attracts a man, and in that way, the scope of material activities involving house, wealth, children, and friendship increases. And thus, instead of decreasing one's material demands, one becomes entangled in material enjoyment. Lord Shiva, however, is different. Therefore, his name is Shiva. He is not at all attracted by material enjoyment. Although his wife Sati was the daughter of a very great leader and was given to him by the request of Brahma. Lord Shiva was reluctant, but Sati, as a woman, the daughter of a king, wanted enjoyment. She wanted to go to her father's house just as her other sisters might have done and meet them and enjoy social life. Here she specifically indicated that she would decorate herself with the ornaments given by her father. She did not say that she would decorate herself with the ornaments given by her husband because her husband was careless about all such matters. He did not know how to decorate his wife and take part in social life because he was always in ecstasy with thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hmm. So ultimately, we have to get to this state where we become callous about material life. And we are always in ecstasy with thoughts of Krishna. According to the Vedic system, a daughter is given a sufficient dowry at the time of her marriage, and therefore Sati was also given a dowry by her father, and ornaments were included. It's also the custom that the husband gives some ornaments, but here it is particularly mentioned that her husband, being materially almost nothing, could not do so. Therefore, she wanted to decorate herself with the ornaments given by her father. It was fortunate for Sati that Lord Shiva did not take the ornaments from his wife and spend them for ganja, because those who imitate Lord Shiva in smoking ganja exploit everything from household affairs. They take all of their wife's property and spend on smoking, intoxication, and similar other activities. So this natural uh, binding material life, this has to get cut. It doesn't mean that we give up relations or anything like that. It's just that we see everybody on the spiritual platform and not as husband and wife and this kind of material vision. Mm. Because otherwise, that is the reason why we keep saying that we should put an end to grihastha duties. If you don't end grihastha duties, this material bondage, this attachment, and thereby impetus for material enjoyment will not stop at all. Every day I keep observing things, how it happens in the house, and I see that it just goes on and on and on and on, and there is no end to it. Mm. There's no end to this material grihastha life unless we actually draw a line. At some point of time in our life, we have to draw a line saying, okay, grihastha is over, now vanaprastha. Otherwise, we can keep going on. Yeah, social life, relatives, functions, this, that, go home, go to native. I mean, what is the use of all this? We've done this all in not just one life. We've done this multiple lifetimes. Punapana charvita charvanana. But still, somehow we derive some rasa out of it, some juice out of all this material stuff, social engagements, you know, shopping, spending money, buying things, blah blah blah. And this has been going on for time immemorial. So this is very important. Lord Shiva was not at all attached to all this. Just callous. Callous. Why? Because he was always in ecstasy. And we might not be able to come to this stage, but at least if we follow Varnashrama, we can at least make sure that we are giving ourselves an opportunity to switch to this ecstasy mode. Otherwise, we'll be just in material enjoyment mode, or at least, if not material enjoyment, duty bound mode. Oh, I have to do this because it's my duty. But at some point of time, that duty has to end. It's very, very important. Tatra swashra me nanu bhartra samhita matra swashra क्लिन्न धियं च मातरं रक्षे चिरोत्कण्ठमना महर्षिभिर् उन्नीयमानं च मृदाध्वरध्वजम्. My sisters, my brother, my mother's sisters and their husbands and other affectionate relatives must be assembled there. So if I go, I shall be able to see them, and I shall be able to see the flapping flags and the performance of sacrifice by the great sages. For these reasons, my dear husband, I am very much anxious to go. So first she said, if you desire, we may go. Now she's giving all the reasons why she is very anxious to go. As stated before, the tension between father-in-law and son-in-law persisted for a considerable time. Sati had therefore not gone to her father's house for a long while. That she was very anxious to go to her father's house, particularly because on that occasion her sisters and their husbands and her mother's sisters would be there. As is natural for a woman, she wanted to dress equally to her other sisters and also be accompanied by her husband. She did not, of course, want to go alone. त्वयेतदाश्चर्यमजात्ममायया विनिर्मितं भाति गुणत्रयात्मकं तथापि हम योषिततत्त्वविच्यते दीनदिदृक्षे भव मे भवक्षितं क्षितिम्. This manifested cosmos is a wonderful creation of the interaction of the three modes or the external energy of the Supreme Lord. This truth is fully known to you. Yet I am but a poor woman, and as you know, I am not conversant with the truth. Therefore, I wish to see my birthplace once more. So she finally comes to her, expresses her real feeling. Dakshayani Sati knew very well that her husband, Lord Shiva, was not very much interested in the glaring manifestation of the material world, which is caused by the interaction of the three modes. Therefore, she addressed her husband as Aja, which refers to one who has transcended the bondage of birth and death, or one who has realized his eternal position. He stated the illusion of accepting the perverted reflection, the material or cosmic manifestation to be real, is not present in you because you are self realized. For you, the attraction of social life and the consideration that someone is father, someone is mother, and someone is sister, which are illusory relationships, is already over. So Sati is saying that she is saying that okay, these are illusory relations, but still she is bound by it. But he, Lord Shiva, is not bound by it. He's crossed it. He's beyond it. Why? Because I am a poor woman. I am not so advanced in transcendental realization. Therefore, naturally, these appear to me as real. Only less intelligent persons accept this perverted reflection of the spiritual world to be real. Those who are under the spell of the external energy accept this manifestation to be fact, whereas those who are advanced in spiritual realization know that it is illusion. It is illusion because it's not our real position, it's an imagined position. And we want to think of that as a real and eternal. Actual reality is elsewhere in the spiritual world. But as far as I am concerned, Sati said, I do not have much knowledge about self realization. I'm poor because I do not know the actual facts. I'm attracted by my birthplace and I want to see it. One who has attraction for his birthplace, for his body, and for other such items mentioned in the Bhagavatam is considered to be Gokhara. Yasyasti buddhir punapetri dhatuke swadikalaphtaradi shubham maijjati yatirtha buddhi salilena karshit saeva avigne saeva Gokhara. Sati might have heard all this many times from her husband, Lord Shiva, but because she was a woman, Yoshit, she still hankered after the same material objects of affection. The word Yoshit means one who is enjoyed. Therefore, woman is called Yoshit. In spiritual advancement, association with Yoshit is always restricted. Because if one is like a play doll in the hands of Yoshit, then all his spiritual advancement is at once stopped. It is said those who are just like playthings in the hands of a woman, Yoshit Krida Mrugeshu, cannot make any advancement in spiritual realization. Of course, so this is for all the men, and for the women is to make sure that they don't play this role of, you know, using husband as a play doll. And that means that not being attached to material pleasures, material attachment, material enjoyment, etc. And focus all energies on spiritual advancement. Mm. But I see that generally in general, it's much easier for men to become little more detached from material things than women because that is the nature. So um, we should understand that if we have accepted the body of woman in this life, we will have to put some extra effort. Uh, we'll have to put some extra effort to develop that detachment, material things, home, earth, etc. It's not that it's not possible, but because of that nature is so strong in the body of a woman, that some extra effort will be required. Of course, some devotees are very fortunate; they have a natural kind of detachment. But in general, mm, being stuck on the material platform happens very easily for women, and for men devotees who have taken male body, it's reasonably easier. Of course, I've said this before also. Sometimes men, in the name of detachment, don't do their duties. That's not acceptable. So we have to do our duties, not take it as a option. Yeah, just use this as a pretext to not do our duties. But we should not be attached. We should do our duty detached. 'Cause that is why Krishna says, "Karmanyamadi karaste." You have the right to do duty. You have to do duty. You can't run away. But don't be attached to the result. Don't be attached to being the doer, etc. But it's generally more difficult for women. Okay, I think I'll stop here. Okay, any questions, comments? Some reason today, like, very few devotees. Okay, any questions, thoughts? Nothing? Okay. Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakal Kripa Sindhubhyo Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Vaishnava ki jai. So I am not there Monday to Thursday, so we will again get together only on Friday and Saturday next week. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna.